patient to have a COVID-19 jab. Dr. Harpreet Sood is leading an NHS anti-disinformation campaign and says there is growing evidence that many in these communities are being put off having the vaccine because of false information. Well, let's discuss the issue with Dr. Singh, MBE, who joins me. He's a GP in Nottinghamshire who's been looking at the impact of COVID on BAME communities. Hello, very good morning. Thank you for your time. I mean, does your experience, do your conversations and consultations lead you to think that there is a lot of concern or a lot of misinformation about the vaccine?
Yeah, I mean, there is growing evidence that there have been some concerns and anxieties amongst members from not only the Black, Asian minority communities, but also members of the Southeast Asian communities about the vaccine. And some of these may stem from religious or cultural beliefs, which are commonly held by these communities. But we cannot ignore the fact that there are many myths and a lot of misinformation that's being actively propagated on social media, which might be discouraging and confusing some members of the community against wanting to be vaccinated.
And misinformation, I believe, suggestions, for example, that the vaccines contain alcohol.
Exactly. Vaccines, myths including that the vaccines contain alcohol, contain meat products, contain microchips to do with the 5G network, and also contain fetal cells that I've seen on the internet and on social media, which are completely untrue and need challenging and confronting, not only with the facts in a considered and pragmatic way, but also in a very culturally competent way, so that if people from Southeast Asian communities don't use English as their first language, that these messages need to be communicated in languages that they can understand and via media platforms that they commonly access. We also need to ensure that we have buy-in and engagement from faith and religious leaders in the community so that we can work collaboratively to kind of dispel and debunk these myths and win over the trust of people belonging to these minority communities.
OK, that's interesting. I mean, you've half answered what I was going to say, because I was going to say, for example, it would seem quite obvious to try to get the information out there in languages other than English. I mean, that would appear as a layperson here to be a sensible first step. But I mean, what GPs like yourself, I suppose, what do you try to do? Do you just try to get as much information out there as you can using your websites and so on? I mean, how do you feel you're sort of fighting a lone battle in this?
No, I think we are working collaboratively with NHS England. We're working collaboratively with the Royal College of General Practitioners, and it's a collaborative approach. We do what we can through our websites, through word of mouth. And during the pandemic, I created a lot of different videos to do with navigating this confusing time for ethnic minority communities. And there's a great uptake for that. But we have to remember the tragedy here is that the BAME communities and people from Southeast Asian communities were the most hard hit and disproportionately affected by the pandemic. So it's very important that we ensure that they have their vaccinations to protect themselves, their families, their communities, and more importantly, also the NHS.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for your time.